All right, I think we'll get things started here. For those of you who aren't familiar, I'm Aaron Miller from Automotive Parts Solutions. I've been a longtime PRP partner and a URG member since 1999, so I don't think I've missed more than 2 of these, maybe 3 in the last, I don't know how many years, 26 years probably. So thank you all for attending. How many of you were at one of my sessions last year? A few of you? Okay. I thought maybe more. I'll quickly go through the abbreviated version of that story last year so we don't consume the whole time. So my brother and I started APS, greenfielded it in 1999, started on Pinnacle, started with URG as a result. From a vacant facility. It was an old garbage transfer place that we had leased. So last year we told our story, kind of where we came from, where we went, and we struggled for about 18 years to really get things working the way they should. The last 7 or 8 years, things have really come around, taken off. And that's what last year was about. And through that journey, I went, and I'll tell the story through our presentation today, from, heavily involved in the day-to-day, I mean like absolutely pivotal by design, that to today where I have a team of people who run the company for me. And obviously to get there, delegation is a huge, that skill and ability developing that is huge. So we'll talk about that today. We'll share a little bit more about my story, and then we'll have a Q&A before the conclusion where I'll bring up Sarah and Nolan. So Sarah's our general manager. She started as our bookkeeper 20 years ago, fresh out of school, right? And Nolan, he's now our controller, just about fully trained in. He should be trained in by the end of the year, and he came fresh out of college 2 years ago, right? 3, 4, 2. So we have a lot of practical experience. Me delegating downward, right? Sarah receiving and delegating downward. Nolan the receiver. So that Q&A can be really valuable when, especially if you're a smaller growing company, it might give you a nice way of getting your skills developed to delegate and a roadmap to do it that might make it smoother, easier, hopefully more successful. So that's my goal here for you today. The definition of delegation is to give someone part of the work and or responsibility of the task and or outcome. I took that off the internet, so it's not my version. So our topic's really gonna revolve around leadership and management. So how many of you are owners in here? Okay, and how many are managers? Okay, pretty evenly distributed. So we'll talk about the benefits of delegating. It develops employee skills as well as your own. If you're an effective delegator, you've definitely developed a skill, because it is not something that's natural, I would say. It frees up your time, so as an owner or a manager, increases morale and motivation by people being assigned more responsibility. Let's say one of our themes at APS is we definitely promote from within. Our entire management team is made up of people who started like Sarah at an entry-level position and demonstrated great ability, skill, and commitment and earned their way up in the company. So to date yet, in 25, almost 26 years, I've never hired a key manager, like went out and grabbed a key manager from outside the organization. It's always been internal. As you delegate and scale, you can accomplish more as a company and more as a manager or an owner. And then in the end, you're going to have enhanced productivity, which generally is going to mean you're going to be more profitable, more successful. The steps to, here's so the step one of the steps in at least my experience with delegating have been starting with an organizational chart. So this is like a super simple one. I would liken this to, like, let's say a U-pull, you know, not a huge metro U-pull, but like an average U-pull, or a smaller full-service sub-recycler that has, let's say, either one of them around 10 employees or less. You can't afford to have 7 managers and a crew of 10, right? But if you're going to grow the company, you are going to have to scale your management team and your organizational structure to support that growth. That's a very delicate balance to maintain and to be able to afford as a business. Because let's say you're 12 employees and you jump to this, you probably go bankrupt, right? You just can't afford to pay all these people what they're worth at that moment in time. So you're gonna, as you delegate and scale your business, you're gonna need to decide what seats to fill. And as a manager or owner, you're gonna have to make those decisions off of your own personal situations. So if I go back to 8-9 years ago, you know, I've always been the owner. I was the general manager at that point in time. I was buying all our cars. I was managing sales, and I was in control of, Sarah was doing the bookkeeping, but I was in charge of all the financials. Like at the end of the month, I do all that. Month end. And at that point, I was working 6 days a week, probably not on-prem, right? That's one of the downsides of today's technology. You can work from anywhere. You know, this thing's with us 24/7. Probably got a laptop or an iPad with you too. At the conventions, I was bidding cars, checking on people, following up. On vacations with my family when the boys were little, I had to keep buying cars while we were gone, so my family would go, here we are away from, 4 states away, and I'm stuck in the hotel room working. Not a cool, enjoyable place to be, which led to an incredible amount of frustration and led to just burnout. I think the same thing can happen, that's from an owner's perspective, right? Plus all the stress of owning the business and you're struggling to really get it to work. Really gets you questioning why you're doing what you're doing. Going and getting a job somewhere else would have been a hell of a lot easier. So at that point, it was kind of a breaking point around 96. I'm like, something's got to change. So I committed to working out of that situation and getting to a better place. And it all started with approaching a few key people in the company, Sarah being the first, and asking if they would step up and take more responsibility. So this was more of this might not be relevant to your situation, no two are the same. At that point, it was like a massive effort. It was either I got to change this or I can't keep my shit together, to be honest. So we started with Sarah, met with her, met with Travis, met with Jeff because Jesse wasn't with us yet. And of course, Nolan was, I think he was still in high school. And fortunately, they were all committed to doing whatever it would take to make it work. So that's when this whole delegation process started. And I had no idea what I was doing, right? Obviously, because I had 5 or 6 seats on my org chart. So we embarked on this journey, and what I learned is, we got better and better at delegating. And just like anything in a successful business, it becomes a system. And today, what I'm going to try to show and demonstrate to you is just the basic system that we use. It's rather simple. and hopefully give you somewhat of an idea or roadmap to get you thinking about how you might elevate yourself either out of a difficult situation or just improve your situation in your business overall. So once you've identified, I'd recommend, if you're new to delegating, you're obviously in a management role, you aren't going to have to worry about the org chart if you have one, right? But if you don't have one, I highly recommend starting there. And it's not where, I didn't create the org chart with where we're at. I created it for where we're going. And then if you're in multiple seats, just put your name in there. And then that helps you analyze in your mind and decide which role do I want to delegate first, right? And it was a process that way. I didn't delegate 3 different areas at once. You do one at once and work through this process. So first off is defining the tasks and the responsibilities very clearly. So that would be a job description. You can Google those, you can use ChatGPT or one of the other AIs, and it'll whip you up an job description in minutes, where it would take me hours. When I did all this, it was me, and just typing away, and I'm not good at it. So today it's so much easier. Once you get that, you define then you want to start creating policies and procedures. That's more unique. I had somebody professionally doing that for me years ago, and I hated it, how she did it. Wasn't what I was about or us, so defining policies and procedures can just be bullet points and then subsets, something really simple. But one thing that I'm a big advocate about with regards to job descriptions is absolutely defining why it's important. What critical function does that role provide in the company? And that doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if it's someone sweeping the floor all the way up to the CEO. I think it's really important that person knows why they're there and what significance it has to your organization, and that it's communicated really well. So in that job description, you're going to define the role, the scope, the significance, and then you start building policies and procedures underneath that in the style you want. Step 3 is assigning the right person. So when I was in those 5 or 6 seats, I had to really contemplate who is right for what, who has the greatest chance of succeeding. More often than not, it was somebody in that department, in a function. Sarah doing bookkeeping, Jeff packaging, palletizing parts. Once Jesse came on, he was our top dismantler and parts puller. I think it's like natural. Who could better train our people than him? So identify those persons within. I can't, like I said, if you're short, I really feel like hiring from the outside, I don't have the systems to ensure I'm hiring absolutely the right person for a role that's critical as far as management goes. So I'd much rather have somebody I know intimately, from working together for years, and they've demonstrated to me we have a high level of trust. That's the biggest thing, right? You hire somebody from outside, how do you know you can trust them? Unless you've known them outside of work for years. So that's why I lean that direction. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying I don't have any experience with it. And then, of course, you match the task to the appropriate individual and role and skill level. So the closer their skills are to what you need, obviously the more successful it can be as well. So here I already talked about job description, so you start with that. Then you want an implementation plan. So shortly I'll have Nolan and Sarah come up. In Nolan taking over the controller role, we never have had a controller. We went from Sarah being our accountant bookkeeper to general manager. And as we were going through that process, it's a 2-year process, we grew a ton. Now it's like, we don't need an accountant anymore, we need a controller. Well, we've never had a controller. So it's very important that you redefine that role and that position, and then get a plan for implementation. So initially we thought, could we get Nolan trained in a year? So we started with that as a plan, and 6 months in, we're like, no, this is too big for us and for him. Let's make it 2 years. So I'd say we're probably 75% the way there in the year and a half, I think, close to a year and a half, not quite. And then once Nolan came on, also found out he has another amazing set of skills. So him setting up all this for us, the technology side, we have a whole HR system that manages payroll, does all our HR documentation. And we saw the potential in there that we could, in this platform, house all our training and systemize it and automate it, track it. So not only onboarding, but recertification, be it for any role, be it OSHA, be it hazmat, shipping. And what we found was Nolan's really good with that stuff. So today we have a complete training system that isn't people dependent. It's manager dependent to enforce it getting done, but the system manages it, tracks it, delivers it, and records it. So we had Nolan, as soon as he came on, that's maybe why it's taken a little longer too. He's videoing every single role, be it either from a desktop recorder like Zoom or Teams, so any desk function, he's videoing the steps and process with the person who's delegating away those responsibilities, providing the steps verbally along with the video. So then from there, what I'd recommend is you don't start with necessarily documenting the policies and procedures beforehand. You have that person that you're or that role you're delegating away, then have either the person you're elevating into that role or someone like Nolan document the process from it. But don't you do it because it's automatic. You need somebody who isn't familiar with it to document it so that they're thinking the same way a new trainee would be versus someone who's been doing it, at my point, it was 18 years. It's like you forget what you know. It's just automatic. So how can you teach somebody well something you don't even think about or are even cognizant of what you're doing, right? So that's what we've done, and it's worked extremely well. We still have more refining and tuning to do, but it's a very effective process. Once that person, you're comfortable that they are mastering that role and they're the right person for the right seat, that you aren't uncomfortable, you're not questioning, is this going to work? Then you start to empower them with the decision-making authority. Obviously in accounting, dealing with money, that's a big deal, right? It's like, how much authority do you give them? When do you give it to them? Can they sign checks? Can they transfer money? Do they receive checks? Do they make deposits? Those types of things. That comes after you've trained them how to do the steps and you're seeing the progress and also based on your relationship with them. Step 6 is then monitor their progress and provide feedback. The thing I found, when I was in 5-6 roles, I couldn't schedule anything. The business was running my life. Outside the office, inside the office, I couldn't schedule anything. All it was I was just inundated in firefighting constantly. So the first part is once you get this all in place, if you want it to be successful, you've got to schedule these meetings and schedule that time and make that commitment. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed. Because these people need to know, am I doing it correctly? Am I doing a good job? They need that support from you and that communication. The cool thing about it is once I got in that habit, now today with at least the people who report directly to me, which would be Sarah, Nolan, Callan, and then even our sales manager, I guess he reports to Sarah, but I like to meet with him and Sarah. We just meet on a regular cadence. Make it habit. It's your responsibility to do that and commit to it. At first, if you were like me, it could be extremely challenging because you don't even have enough time in a day to do what you're doing, not to mention do this. But if you don't find that time, you're probably going to fail. And you're not only going to fail for yourself, you're going to fail for that employee, and that's going to set them back big time. They might even leave. In fact, I was so bad at it, I had many people leave before I got my shit together. So. Obviously, addressing in those meetings any issues and challenges, and doing so in a, I don't know, would it be fair to say, Sarah, in a direct way, but kind way? Yeah, it depends. You know, and that's some days when you're greatly stressed, if you were in that many seats, sometimes that can be really difficult. But unless, you know, unless you're able to check that at the door and have these, you know, maintain this trust and do it in a constructive way, you're going to set that relationship back as well. Common pitfalls: having an inadequate training program. So I can't emphasize it enough. The video and the documentation. The video's like you sitting right there with them, but you don't have to commit that time, right? If they can go back to the video and the policies and reference it and train themselves, it's going to save you exponential amount of time. And then it's also repeatable and it's scalable. So you can compare, like, let's say APS now with these in place versus somebody with nothing in place, and there's a big growth opportunity. Let's say like COVID. We didn't have all this in place during COVID, but we had the framework in place, and in a matter of 5 years, we quadrupled our sales as a company. There's no way we could have did that before without having this in place. And we didn't even have the videos and stuff, we just had the documentation, we had great people, we had a great team. We had the proper organizational structure, which was just fortunate, obviously, because we had no idea, you know, what was going to happen. So the training largely video-based. It's one and you're done unless something changes in that, then, you know, in that responsibility, and you're gonna have to update the video, documenting it, and then the lack of the coaching and feedback. Those regular meetings are absolutely critical as well. So it's this 3-step process that if it's not successful, either you're not following it effectively or you got the wrong person. It's that simple. It's one or the other. There's no other explanation. So failing to provide clear instructions gets down to what we talked about, or I just talked about, documenting it through video and written policies. Matching the tasks to the right people. So this is where I get to, maybe you have the wrong person, wrong seat. Doesn't mean maybe they don't belong in the organization, but maybe you're asking them to do something that's just simply not in their sweet spot. You want, whoever you delegate to, you want it to be in their sweet spot. If it is, they're probably going to do it in the end, once they're trained and up to speed, better than you ever could. I can say that in you know, with Sarah in accounting. I've filled in for her over the years, and she come back from a day or two off, and I'm like, oh shit, how does she do this? Same thing in sales with Travis. He is our sales manager, but he still loves to sell, and he goes on vacation. I used to fill in there too. After a couple days, I'd be just like, he does 4 times what I'm doing. I was like, how does he do this? I'm struggling at 1/4 his volume. So having the right people in the right seats is absolutely critical, and I think that's why I really lean towards promoting internally, because I feel pretty confident I know what I have, versus gambling on somebody from the outside that I really don't know that well unless I have a relationship with them. Not following up and following through, we talked about, that's regular meetings, that's providing constructive, direct, very clear feedback, positive, and I don't like to use the word negative. People learning, I mean, I guess I've mastered learning by mistakes. If you get beat up every time you make a mistake, how long are you gonna stick with it? How well are they gonna perform? So now, we'll move on to Q&A. We got lots of time. We're gonna bring Sarah and Nolan up so we can get the full spectrum to be able to answer your questions about, maybe you have a delegation item on your plate right now that you want to tackle and you want some feedback on it. You have questions about this or our processes. Also, if you want to know about the system we're using, it's a huge project. Nolan, how long have you been working on that implementation of the HR system and training? Over 3 years. So I'm very happy to talk about that, but you got to realize to get it where we have it's going to take you 3 or 4 years. But if you have long-range plans for your business, like we do, it's going to be worth the effort and energy. So, does want to come up? All right, that's first hand up. We'll let them sit down, and then can answer your question, or ask your question.
Swap people around.
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. So I guess that's in my plate, probably. So, just so I don't think everybody could hear that, her question is: within the management level roles, what is each person's authority to hire, fire, manage, and delegate to their subordinates? Would that be concise? Okay. Yeah, so we'll pick out a couple different departments. So Jesse over here, he is in charge of inventory and dismantling, which, how many employees do you have there about, Jesse? 11? 11's getting to be a lot to individually manage each one, right? Right? So what we did is we put a supervisor in that whole thing. On a daily basis, Jesse, I apologize, but I don't even know. Do you have any clerical work or things you need to do regarding inventory, or are you just monitoring Justin's performance? Just monitoring him. Yep. So in that instance, and then we'll talk about Jeff and fulfillment, because I think we even have more people in fulfillment, right, Jeff? So once you start approaching, if you feel differently, you tell me, Jesse or Jeff, but you get around 7 subordinates, that's a lot, right? You get above that, it almost gets to be just too much to manage effectively as an individual. So that's where we'll start looking at, can we get a supervisor in there to take part of that responsibility? So with regards to then staffing, I have no involvement in hiring anybody, but unless it would be at the leadership level or some key employee, something that's really, really big. All our managers, so Sarah is on every interview, right? We don't hire anybody without Sarah, our GM, in that interview. We always have the department manager, and we usually have one other person, one other manager involved, or the supervisor. So, like Justin in inventory, he would definitely be involved in that process. Then the managers would make the final decision with the feedback from the supervisors. So in Jeff's situation, we have 14 people in shipping? Fulfillment is what we call it. So So he has a supervisor for the shipping staff who's boxing all the parts. Josh, he's involved in every hiring and firing decision. So same thing on the reverse. Exiting, same thing. Same group. And then with parts pulling, that kind of is kind of in between. It's interesting, it kind of sits between Jesse and Jeff. But we have not necessarily a formal supervisor. He's a pretty young guy, but he's super good. He's only 22 or 23. But he's our what we call point person. We're not ready to give him the title of supervisor yet, but he's definitely our lead in that department. In that instance, we don't involve him in the hiring process, but we weigh on him really heavy for feedback about the new hires. He can have a huge influence on our decisions about are we keeping this person or not, based on his feedback. If we think there's an issue just because he's young and we aren't ready to give him that supervisor authority, Sarah has in the past go around, like if he has a concern, she goes around and checks with the other people around this person, same level in the org chart, to confirm or refute what you've heard, just to validate it before we make any decisions about exiting somebody out of the company. Does that answer all those questions? Sure. Our turnover rate, like at the leadership level, we exited one person when we initially asked people to step up. He just couldn't do it. We tried it and it didn't work. Typically, I've been told the risk of elevating somebody is if you try something and you give them a greater level of responsibility and then you pull it away, more than likely they're going to go. In this instance, we just let him go with severance. He gave it his best shot. I mean, how could we, slight him for that? But it just was not in his skill set. So we gave him a severance package, and he went and found something that worked better for him. Yes, sir.
Do the managers have a criteria in the termination process that they have to fulfill for like a general manager?
Yeah, the question is, do we have a process for exiting or terminating employees? And we definitely do. In our, I don't know, we aren't pulling it up. It was last year, we went through our core values through this process. So a big one is, do they line up with our core values? We quickly exit new people that don't mesh with our core values. We also have had really good people who have serious issues happen in life. Like they start drinking again and they have a problem with that, where they met our core values, and then when that event occurs, they completely don't anymore. So we start with core values and we check that. We also have a 3 strike, right? So the first is verbal, the second is written, the third is, it's been real but not real fun. See you later. Is there any more to that, Sarah?
So something
Move a little closer.
something that we're still in the process of implementing right now is getting really effective at check-ins. So if someone is a newer employee, we do it once a month. And we have a certain criteria we go through, which is core values, and then we set the metrics for each department, whether it's shipping or sales, any metrics numbers we need them to meet. And then anybody that's been here longer than 6 months, we do it every quarter. And then again, the core values and everything are on there, and we can evaluate them from there.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit further on that, thanks for saying that, Sarah. So some roles are way, way easier to set performance criteria. So that's been our biggest project this last, how long? The performance criteria, we're really focusing on that.
A year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah.
So we start with, like a dismantler. You only have so many bays, right? You can't afford to have somebody in that bay if they're producing half of the average, or at least very long, because it's just killing your productivity. So So we set our minimum performance standards for somebody who's in that role, fully trained, fully experienced. But as all of us know, I mean, dismantling takes a long time to get the knowledge to get super good. But so then I mean, to be honest, we struggled with how long, we would go back and forth. How long do we give this person? You know, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it a month? And it's all relative, right? You bring somebody in who's in their 20s, has never done it before, versus somebody who came from another recycler, and there's no comparison. The guy who came from the other recycler, it's 30 days, you know? The young kid is, I don't know, what is it now, Jesse? We finally documented what those expectations are, but somebody knew, what are we roughly now, 6 months for dismantling?
We have different standards for different timelines.
Yeah, so we got down to the point where our expectations for every month of that 6 months to get to goal, and it's with these sit downs reviewed every month until they either get there or get out. That part of that scale of, especially like sales, I mean, it's nuts, you know. It takes a year for anybody to get anywhere competent, in my opinion. But
Another scenario that I'd like to just run by is a high-performing salesman who's looking for a leadership role. We don't find that make that transfer. Yeah, or really it's even worse.
right. So you're, if I'm hearing you right, like a salesperson, you want to move,
Top-end sales guy looking to become a supervisor.
becoming a sales manager or a supervisor. Well, we have that exact situation. So, if you watch over the years some of the Smart Cycle PRP stuff, Travis, who is now our sales manager and our top salesman, is always in the top. In the first quarter of this year, he's managing 9 people, and he sold $650,000 last month and the month before. He has a 4-year-old daughter. He's getting a little frazzled, to say the least. In that role, I've been told my entire life, never promote your top salesman or a great salesman to a sales manager role. I didn't promote Travis to the sales manager role. Travis came to me, how long ago, Sarah?
Probably a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Well, 2 years ago. He's like, I want to manage sales. I'm like, you sure about this? He's like, yeah, and you don't have to pay me anything to do it. I just want to do it. I'm like, all right, but let's try it. I told him point blank, I don't want this to become a mess. It's like, let's try it, step into it, see if you like it, see if you're good at it. Well, now we're at the point where, with 9 people, it's like he's got to switch from a salesman to a manager. Else $650K. I mean, it's like, how does that happen? So we're implementing a full process of how we're going to make that happen here by the end of the year. I'm not going to tell you that you should, just because this is working for us, that you should try it. It's a huge risk. I mean, he's 40% of our sales,
Close.
9 people. So, but he's fully committed to it, and he's really good at it. You can tell he's atypical. He's moved up that hierarchy of needs. At that level, the guy's very financially, he manages money really well. He's very financially set. So now he's like, I need more. I need more out of life, right? And that's what we're trying to get everybody on our leadership team moving to that point where their role is developing people, elevating people, helping them get to a higher level, rather than doing. And that is, there's no doubt, right, Sarah, you're in the middle of it. Jesse and Jeff are in the middle of it, Travis. It is like you're trying to go this way and you're pulled this way. You just keep pulling it. At some point, it was from my experience too, right, getting on all the seats. At some point, it just takes, you just got to fight and fight and fight and be very deliberate until you can just finally break through. You'll know when you get there, but we're definitely on all the seats. I don't think we're there yet, right? So that's where Sarah's right in the middle. As I've delegated a ton to her, she's trying to delegate everything, from the accounting side to Nolan. And then Travis is just in a whole different situation. Yes?
Do you have any people that have multiple seats under different managers? You talked about Jesse and Jeff kind of sharing yard. I'm doing a similar work chart that I have. My eBay guy is all inventory, so he's under sales in eBay seat and under production in inventory seat. We're having some issues with difference in management. Do you have anybody in positions like that?
Yeah, so basically the question there is, do you have anybody in a split role that falls in different departments? Would that be correct? Today, do we?
And the only situation is with like part pulling, they manage the two positions together, the two of them.
Yeah, so that's kind of the reverse of what you're asking, I think, is we've got the opposite. So the parts pullers obviously are delivering a result to Jeff to get the parts out, right? But the expertise and knowledge of doing that role really falls in Jesse's wheelhouse. So that one's the opposite. They kind of almost, officially they do report to one, but they actually on a work basis when they're producing work, report to two people, right? Split roles, I know we have, but it's been a while. So I think the big thing is you're aware of it, right? And then having those two seats clearly defined, there's gonna, when a person's in that role and is starting to get maxed out, is that where you're going? There's tension and stress there of, he's trying to do this, but he also is needed over here, and it's getting to that breaking point, or?
He really wants to hold on to both roles.
He does.
He wants to continue the inventory because that helps eBay sales.
Yes.
And he's efficient eBay sales.
That would be like kind of like a Mark situation.
Yes, we do have someone. We have a supervisor who is in charge of our eBay and our website, but also was in charge of all our previewers for buying. Yeah, and we're prying it out of his hands gradually. Yeah.
It's a lot.
So the question is how did Sarah manage taking on everything she's taking on and offloading everything she needs to offload? And that's a massively good question.
First of all, what helps is that I have a really good set of managers to help manage every other department. If I had to spend a lot of time just managing the departments like they do every day, I would never be able to do it. So without them, it probably wouldn't happen. So trusting in them to run those each departments, and then it's just communication and consistency. Nolan and I are still in the process. We've been meeting 3 times a week, every week consistently now for a year and a half. Yeah. He's probably sick of me. He's doing a great job, but you have, like Aaron said earlier, you have to stay consistent and you have to keep that communication open. We have to make time. It's on the schedule, and unless one of us is on vacation, it happens every single week.
Other questions? Well, we must have did a decent job then. Everybody has all the answers they want. Thank you so much for attending. I hope this provides you with some tools and valuable insight. You want to move it forward, no? If you want to reach out to us, a couple pitches here. So see John Bessler's deal after lunch about EOS. If you want to learn how to run your business to a higher level, more successfully, that'll be a great one. Pinnacle is a version of EOS. John runs with the EOS, but Pinnacle is the same thing, different version. We have a YouTube channel. Some of it's entertaining, some of it's this stuff. Like this video will be up there after the session. So you can reference that. Thank you so much. I hope this helps you move your business forward, free up your time, and enjoy your work a little more, and be more successful.